you for tuning in to the MMA podcast. It's our 46th episode. Today is June 7th, 2013. We do have a UFC card on the horizon, UFC on Fuel TV 10, aka the Tough Brazil Finale 2. That's going to be tomorrow on Fuel TV. Not that deep of a card, but we'll still talk about it anyway. We also have Adam Hunter, also known as MMARoasted, on in just literally like 2 or 3 minutes. You heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's hilarious. Definitely want to ask him about stand-up comedy and MMA. Also, a soiree of MMA news coming in. We got fights signed. We got Anderson Silva officially signed to a deal. People switching around. Promotions. Got a bunch to talk about. So let's do that shit.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast with Jake and Chris.
And it is myself and Ramses today here to interview Adam Hunter and then talk about the week in mixed martial arts. Quick shout out before we talk about the Word on the Street podcast, which is what Ramses does. Shout out to MMA Mental and MMA Victor. MMAmental.com, the best interviews in the UK. Ray's doing crazy work over there. Check him out. And, of course, MMAVictor.com. You can listen to this show every Friday, 6 to 8 Eastern, and the Roundtable every 5 to 7 Eastern on Thursdays. Ramses, before we call up Adam Hunter, what the fuck is up with you, and what is the motherfucking word on the street? That Bob Sapp interview was hot. That Adam Sella interview was hot. Where can we check him out?
You gotta follow me on Twitter, the Aunt Jimmy Show. Last night, anybody that followed me got laid. And you know what? Extra bonus, you do it again today, same thing. You'll get laid this weekend, guaranteed. Word on the street.
Word on the street. You want to get fucked? Listen to those interviews with Adam Sella, the living legend, Coach Jamie Huey. If you're on Twitter, also remember to bug Shannon Knapp to get Lightning Liz on that Invicta card. Operation Lightning. We're making it happen. I saw everybody, Kelvin Gastelum, Uriah Hall, the whole team Darkside was tweeting at Shannon Knapp to get her on.
Hell yeah.
So, fuck yeah, that was really good. We got a bunch of MMA bullshit to talk about. But first and foremost, we got Adam Hunter, a.k.a. MMARoasted, coming on. And we're going to call him up right now. Let's ring him up.
Hey, you reached the voicemail of Adam Hunter. Leave a message.
All right, well, he is not available. We might try and call him back in maybe 5 minutes. But I guess, I don't want to bug him. I guess we'll go ahead and skip the interview section for now. We'll cover one topic, maybe try and call him back. Let's play that news drop. My first bit of news I want to talk about, Anderson Silva officially signing a 10-fight deal with the UFC. Before we talk about his future in the UFC, how he might fare, a lot of people think he's going to go 10-0. A lot of people think that he has losses in the future, and a lot of people think he has losses in the immediate future in Chris Weidman. Before we talk about his actual future, Ramses, is there any way that he actually fulfills the deal and has another 10 fights in the octagon?
Let me tell you something about Anderson fucking Silva. He is approaching bum status. He is 2 or 3 fights away from just becoming, he's going to lose in his next 2 or 3 fights. You can mark my words, all right? That's why he wanted to sign a deal for as many fights as he could, because he wants to sign the deal for those fights based on what he's worth right now being an undefeated champion. It's not looking too good. I think Weidman's going to clean him up, clean him out. He's going to become a bum, but yeah, that just means he's got one more fight left with GSP before he retires. That is the biggest money fight. I mean, come on. Who's going to step up? And Anderson Silva ain't going to make more money fighting anybody at middleweight being undefeated. It's getting to one of those. It's getting like Floyd Mayweather status with Anderson Silva. All right, eventually the pay-per-view is going to drop off. The only big money fight left is that Pacquiao fight, and what I mean is the GSP fight. So I honestly think Anderson Silva loses in the next 2 or 3 fights, and then he fights GSP and he fades into the sunset. 10 fights, that's just ridiculous. Come on, give me a break.
Give me a break, cocksucker. Look, I've got to respect the guy. He's the greatest of all time, and we have seen guys fighting into their 40s. I think a big question is going to be TRT. Silva has bashed it in the past. I'm sure he's on it already, but will he have a Vitor like 40s, or I don't even know if he's in his 40s, but once he gets older, will he be able to maintain like Vitor has? He's shown no signs of slowing down, so I say he does fight the next 10 fights. If he does fight 10 fights, or even if he doesn't, what do you think his record's going to be in his remaining UFC scraps?
What the fuck is his record now? 17-0, or what is it? Does anybody even fucking know? Honestly, he's gonna have his first defeat here coming up pretty soon. If it's not Weidman, well, if he gets past Weidman, they're gonna give him a layup fight just to get him through the year. Because I have to remind people, this great undefeated champion, this mystical Anderson Silva from Brazil, he only defended his title one time in the year 2012. Last year, he only defended it one fucking time. We all know who it was. It was against the People's Champion, Chael Sonnen. And he took that fight because he had to. They forced him to fight that man and defend his title. Otherwise, he just waits until they come up with some sort of just easy layup fight for him. Not going to happen this time. He can't duck Weidman. He tried to, trust me. Don't be surprised if that fight falls apart still. But, man, it's hard to tell. Weidman should wreck his ass, but then again, Chael should have too. If Weidman makes a mistake, it's gonna cost him. But I honestly think, man, Silva's gonna lose any fucking day now. I think this is his year. Well, rather, it's not gonna be his year.
For sure. And I actually just texted Adam at MMA Roasted at the same number to see if he might give us a ring back. So we'll wait for a ring back, and if I gotta cut you off in the middle of your sentence, it probably means he called back, and I gotta answer it real quick.
He's a busy man. He's a fancy man out there in LA or something.
He's a fancy man.
Well, he's not a fancy boy. He's a fancy man. There's a difference. You ever, like people have specific tastes in life. Some gentlemen enjoy cigars. That's the kind of fancy shit I'm talking about. Being a fancy man. Fancy boy, you never want to approach that status, that's for damn sure. I love MMA Roasted. I listen to his shit all the time. He actually interviewed my favorite fighter a couple weeks ago, and it was a damn good show. If anybody hasn't heard it, check it out and follow MMA Roasted on Twitter.
Hell yeah, follow that man. Whether or not he comes on, I'm sure he is busy, and I'm sure if he doesn't make it this week, he'll make it on another show. The dude's funny as fuck, so I'm definitely looking forward to having him on whenever we finally are able to wrangle him down. I sort of want to stick on the topic of Anderson Silva because Roy Jones Jr., long ago, Anderson Silva called out Roy Jones Jr., said he wanted to box him, and Roy Jones Jr., coincidentally, immediately after Silva signs a 10-fight deal, says, "Oh yeah, I'll fight you." I don't think the timing's a coincidence. I think Jones waited until he knew there was an opportunity, or a lack of one, that Silva wouldn't be able to box him during the 10-fight ordeal and would have to wait another 5 or 6 years. So Jones is ducking him harder than GSP's ducking him. But, talking about Silva's next 10 fights, he has some tough ones. He has Weidman, Jones, St. Pierre. Those are all going to be difficult scraps. But I don't necessarily think Roy Jones Jr. would be that difficult to scrap. What do you think about all this nonsense?
This fucking fight is never going to happen, all right? As everyone already said, we just talked about it. Anderson Silva signed a 10-fight deal. If you can even believe that, which I still think is bullshit. But all right, let's assume he signed that deal with the UFC. Automatically, he's not allowed to compete in a fucking boxing match, right? It's not going to happen. UFC is not going to let it happen. The only way a Roy Jones Jr. versus Anderson Silva fight goes down is if it's in the fucking octagon. And that shit ain't gonna happen, just because it is a little too outrageous. I mean, you can do that once somebody's, done being champ. You can do that with a Randy Couture. The man was 58 years old when he fought James Toney. But this fight is too ridiculous. It's not gonna happen. Anderson Silva's under a contract. There's nothing in it for the UFC. A boxing match on pay-per-view, even if they wanted 100% of Anderson Silva's take, that's not worth. I mean, what happens if Roy Jones Jr. knocks Anderson Silva out? Guess what? Anderson Silva ain't worth a damn in the UFC anymore because he lost to no offense to Roy Jones Jr., but he's past his prime.
Boy.
He's past his prime. I don't want to call him a bum because I love the man, but he's done. And Anderson, man, he'll take this fight after he loses to Weidman probably and retires, but it's not going to happen while he's still champion.
No, it's not. It's not going to happen until this 10-fight deal is done. As far as combat goes, the UFC owns Anderson Silva until he fights in the UFC 10 more times. Then Silva can leave and do anything else he wants. He can go. He can go box. He can go wrestle. And speaking of wrestling, that's a beautiful transition to our next guy. Anderson Silva could follow in the footsteps of Rampage Jackson and join TNA Wrestling. We saw the debut last night. Rampage officially being purchased by Viacom. He is a Bellator fighter. He is a TNA wrestler. He is a Spike TV spokesman. What did you think of his wrestling debut last night on TNN? If you missed it, pretty much like we all guessed, Rampage says he's moving up to heavyweight, which means his motivation is all but gone. He's probably not going to be flying off the ropes doing these crazy acrobatics. He's probably just going to be one of these guys who looks mean and makes faces at other guys in the middle of a ring and just says a lot of crap, but when it really comes down to the fights, isn't going to be that entertaining. I don't even follow wrestling, but I just know that's what's going to happen. I know that is what's going to happen because Rampage, saying he doesn't want to cut to 205 anymore is all you need to tell me. He lost his motivation in the UFC. So if this is probably the only wrestling clip over 3 minutes I've watched, maybe in my life, but it was pretty entertaining because it was Rampage Jackson and Kurt Angle just looking mean at one another, looking like they were about to kiss at points. Ramses, what did you think about this TNA debut, and how much do you care about Rampage at this point? Sorry to mix up Ramses with Rampage.
Well, I really don't care what happens to me. It's fucking what's the fucking stupid Latin phrase? Whatever. Rambo said, they questioned him one time. Colonel Troutman said to Rambo at the end of Rambo 2, he said, after it was all over, he defeated the Russians in Afghanistan. Colonel Troutman looks Rambo in the eye and says, how will you live? And Rambo looks back and says, day by day. That's how I live, people. Now listen, I don't even know what the fuck we're talking. Oh, Rampage. Yeah, Rampage making his debut on TNA Impact Wrestling. God bless the man. I'm happy to see him back. Honestly, when he yelled at Dana White, you gonna miss me? I was like, yeah, we are, and I did. And I'm glad he's back this soon. The debut last night was ridiculous. Basically, Rampage walks out to a roaring crowd, stands in the middle of the octagon, and then Kurt Angle hobbles his way out as well. Somehow manages to climb through the ropes, and then there's some stare down that goes down with Rampage. Kurt Angle, dude, holy fuck. This man could barely walk. Trust me, my knee, I have a bad knee right now. I need surgery. I just need to schedule it some time, get it over with. But I can walk better than this man, and I have to use a goddamn cane half the time. This guy just limped into the fucking ring. Rampage stared him down. Credit to Rampage for having that fucking crazy eye twitch going down. He never broke character. That's what we love about Rampage. That's the best part. Honestly, because he hasn't had a decent Rampage fight in maybe 4 years. So yeah, it was cool to see. But honestly, his first fight is going to be against Kurt Angle, and I swear to you, after this man got backstage, they put him back into his wheelchair. This guy's knees are blown out visibly. He shouldn't even be walking on his own accord with just take a look at it. We'll post the link up here on Twitter. Kurt Angle's done. They're giving Rampage a layup work, and that's how you know it's bad. Because wrestling is fake, yes, but when they're giving Rampage a bum in wrestling to start off with, and it's going to be determined, like they're going to have rehearsals and shit, it's never a good sign. But Rampage, who knows? He might be. I might be proven wrong. He might become the greatest professional wrestler of all time.
Damn, that was a succinct wrap-up of Rampage. Dude, you seem to care way more about him than me. He just really, really disappointed me with his last stanza in the UFC, and I'm not that interested in him. We're sort of have all these natural segues. You got a light heavyweight and a heavyweight, one thinking about moving up, one thinking about moving down. Rampage thinking about moving up. Daniel Cormier saying that this is going to be his last fight at heavyweight, that he's going to move down to light heavyweight after he fights. Is he scheduled against someone? I feel like he is, and I'm just not thinking of who he's scheduled against.
Cormier, isn't he next in line for the title shot? Or is he still dreaming about going down to 205? Because that's not going to fucking happen. This man will never see 205 pounds again in his entire life unless he has something like cancer.
Damn, well, that's not what he's saying. He's saying, yeah, he has not been announced who his next opponent is going to be, but he's saying, I'll quote him, "This is it. My next fight will be my last at heavyweight. I want to try to fight a little lighter this time, and by the end of the year, early next year, I'll fight in my first fight at 205. What do you think about that?
I don't believe it. I'm telling you, this man does not get down to 205 and stay in fighting condition. Look at him. He's an overweight man. It's not going to happen. He would have to diet for an entire year straight just to do it right. If he's just going to try to cut down just to put on a show and make a paycheck, we're going to see a fucking pathetic fight. You can take that to the bank. It is the word on the street.
Damn, word on the street, we're going to see a pathetic fight. Once he moves down, though, would he earn a immediate shot at John Jones?
Did you see when he was fighting?
And someone's calling me, so I'm going to answer it and see if it's MMA roasted, and you go ahead.
Yeah. Basically, Daniel Cormier. I just want to point this out. In his last fight, who the fuck was it? I don't even remember who the fuck he fought. Was it Roy Nelson? I don't see. That's the thing. Daniel Cormier, I can barely pronounce his last name. But yeah, in that last fight, dude,
these fucking telemarketers are making me want to cut somebody's head off. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, these motherfuckers. Yeah, Daniel Cormier, he threw that flippy roundhouse head kick in the first round of his last fight. Yeah, who was his last fight? I'm sorry. I apologize to the audience. DC's last fight. Frank Mir, right. In the opening round of that one, he threw a head kick that it was like an attempted roundhouse that you could tell he backed out of, and it didn't come anywhere near close to landing. And even Rogan commentating was like, okay. So yeah, 205 guy, no way, man. He can't even control his body at the weight he's at. Slimming down, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Look at him. He's a great fighter, but he's fucking fat, and I'm sorry. That's the word.
And we got all these natural segues. Jesus Christ. Anderson to Roy Jones. Roy Jones to Rampage. Rampage to Cormier. And you're talking about fat guys. You're making it easy. As much as I hate to say it. My favorite fighter of all time, BJ Penn. A lot of people think of him as a fat guy, especially at welterweight. No more of this bullshit at welterweight. He's moving down finally, considering a return to lightweight. Yesterday on the round table, we asked if it was a good idea. Everyone said yes, so I got a different question to pose today. How far can BJ Penn progress at the lightweight spot? Can he crack the top 10? Can he crack the top 5? Can he earn a title shot? Can he win the championship again? Look, I really think Penn is not that old a dude. I mean, a lot of people think of Penn as this grandpa. The dude's only 34. He's 4 years younger than Anderson Silva. I think Penn could make a resurgence. His kids aren't babies anymore. His wife's taking care of him. His hot-ass wife is taking care of him, if I may add. He is ready to get back in fighting shape, move down to lightweight, and him saying he's ready to move back down is all I need to hear. The guy had been up at welterweight for his last few fights. I believe his last 4 fights, he lost the lightweight championship, and his following 4 fights were all at a welterweight. And he went 1-2. He beat Hughes, he drew Fitch, and then he lost to Nick Diaz and Rory McDonald, who are 2 guys, in my opinion, who are top 5 welterweights. He needs to move back down to lightweight, and I think it isn't even a question. He can compete in the top 10. As far as the top 5 goes, it'd be very interesting to see him fight guys like Gray Maynard, guys like Gilbert Melendez, guys who have fought for the title recently. Penn versus Maynard, Penn versus Melendez, those would be 2 dynamite cards. And I really think he could rise and earn a title shot against whoever the champion is, whether it's Bendo or whoever, and challenge them for the belt. Ramses, what do you think about this lightweight comeback of BJ Penn?
I'm sorry, Jake, man. I'm sorry. I know BJ Penn is your favorite fighter, but I am not
He's gonna prove you wrong, man.
I'm not even gonna fucking pretend that he's gonna come back and drop down to the lightweight. Come on. If he comes back, that's the only challenge he's preparing for, just making that cut. Look, I'm Mr. Reality here right now, okay? The last 3 BJ fights,
we're swapping roles today.
The dude has fucking retired in the octagon post-fight at least 2 or 3 times. All right? It's almost pathetic now seeing him try to come back. We all know why it's happening. He made the mistake that, if you're a professional fighter, if you have kids, it's all over, man. It's all over for you. I'm sorry. He's coming back just for the paycheck, just like he did in the last fight. And I'm not even going to fucking pretend like he has a chance. He all he's hoping for is maybe a lucky shot during the fight, maybe. Otherwise, he's resolved himself to getting beaten like a newborn puppy, and then just do it. He's gonna make another speech where, oh man, I'm gonna retire. Oh yeah, Joe, thank you. It's gonna be all over. I'm sorry. That's it. That's the word on the street. BJ Penn's done.
We will see, and it sounds like he's going to come back. We might see a comeback as early as the end of this year. That would pump me the fuck up. It might be this year, it might be next year, but we will move on. And before we get into all these announced fights, we're going to start off with the fights we're pumped for. Oh, shit, look who we got calling in. MMA Roasted, perfect timing. Let me add him up. Is this Adam?
Yeah, how's it going, man? Sorry, I'm
late.
Good.
Yeah, not a problem. How are you doing today, man?
Good. Everything's good.
Good, yeah. Thanks for coming on. What are you currently up to, and where can we find your stand-up?
Oh wait, you should tell him. Hold on, Adam. Sorry, this is Ramses from the Word on the Street, dude. We are on live right now as we speak.
Yeah, we're on live.
Oh, cool. Yeah, otherwise that was kind of weird. Otherwise, we're on live. But yeah, I'm in El Paso next week doing stand-up comedy, and then you could find it. I go to AdamHunter.com, like all kinds of videos and stuff on there.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we are a live show. We are uncensored too, so you can cuss, say whatever the fuck you want. Before we get into your stand-up, I did a bunch of research. I got high as hell and listened to you on the Joe Rogan show earlier today, and you mentioned
I was pretty high then too. So
you mentioned you wrestled in high school, and you almost wrestled in college. What got you into wrestling, and how good really were you? Were you a state champ contender?
I actually was. I wrestled in high school. I went to boarding school, so I was looking at the prep league. But I won I was a Class A prep school champion 4 years in a row, and then I won the New England twice. I didn't place the Nationals. That was kind of a bummer. I was undefeated my senior year, and I got impetigo and had to go up a weight class my senior year. But then I got a D1 scholarship to Hofstra, and I went D3 to Binghamton and wrestled for like a semester there, and then kind of got burned out of it. I was losing a lot of weight, and this was like kind of miserable. But I was pretty good. I was like, I remember high school record was like 110-7 or something.
Jesus Christ, that's really fucking good. Did you ever wrestle anyone who made it big in mixed martial arts or in just wrestling, in the collegiate ranks?
I used to go over to Legends, and I would train with Connor Hune. He was in Strike Force. He lost to KJ Noons by split decision, and he was like my wrestling partner. We actually coached the team together in Brentwood, and then I wrestled with Dan Hardy for a while. He used to come to practices and stuff, and then a couple other guys I wrestled with. Some guy named his name's Ambien. Forgot the guy's something. He's a good fighter. I forgot his nickname is Ambien, but I forgot his full name. But
Putting me to sleep.
He puts people to sleep, exactly. Which is also John Fitch's nickname too, but for a different reason. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I was good in high school, and then I loved it. It was like my passion. It's like what I wanted to do, and I kind of got I was good in like the prep school division, so I had to kind of prove to myself that I could be good in public school too, because I think public schools were tougher than prep school, even though they had some post grads. Some kids were really good from prep school, but it was before MMA. I'm 35 now, so MMA hadn't it wasn't like I was doing it now. And I could see kids that now go into it, like most of the kids that I wrestled with. I mean, I remember going to a tournament and watching Matt Hamill wrestle. He was heavier than me, but he was great. He had just going from D1 to D3. I think he was like an All-American D1, so he was just murdering kids in like D3.
All right, wow, yeah, you're talking about Ambien. I hear big pharma blocked Fitch going to Bellator because if Fitch and Askren ever fought one another, the need for sleeping pills would be completely eradicated. We wouldn't need it.
That's true. That's true.
You touched on Connor Hune, who we actually had on 5 or 6 months ago. I think we had him on when he was still doing that Kickstarter thing, trying to raise money for that surgery. I heard the UFC ended up paying for him. Did he get it? How is the surgery going? Connor was really one of our favorite interviews. That is a tough motherfucker.
Yeah, Connor. I don't really know. I mean, he moved to Colorado, so I don't see him as much. We used to hang out a lot in LA. But I think he opened up a gym out there, and he's teaching, which is great. He's a really good teacher. But we had some fun times. When we coached the kids, I remember one kid was like, kid Justin was like, "Hey Connor, I saw your fights on YouTube." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, you got your ass kicked." I was like, "Come on."
Wow.
It was kind of funny though. But he was funny. We were like coaching middle school kids. I really was a coach, and then like one kid's like, "Look what I could do." He's like, "Quit being a retard." I'm like, "You can't call kids retards anymore, Connor."
But what if they're retarded?
I guess if they were, well, I think it's called special needs or something,
That's right.
But yeah, Connor's he's a great guy. I remember though getting drunk though. He got drunk one time and went to one of my comedy shows and kept heckling me. So I had to throw him out of my own show, which was weird because I brought him there.
What is the best way to deal with a heckler?
There's different ways. I mean, it depends on the type of heckler. Sometimes different kind of hecklers. Like, sometimes someone's being a dick, you have to shut them up immediately, It's just easier because, you have a microphone, and normally if you're doing well, the crowd's on your side. Sometimes you have to do like a rope-a-dope strategy where you let the guy go, you just, okay, you're funny, blah, blah, get back to your jokes. And then when he's not expecting it, you just ambush him with insults.
All right, yeah, we hear a lot of fighting tips, but I'm actually moving from Tampa to Denver pretty soon. I'm thinking about hitting up the open mics. I'd love to be a stand-up comic, and it's nice to hear some comedy tips. Speaking of which, I was listening to the Rogan Experience, and you told this hilarious story that maybe some of our listeners haven't heard, including this television show in Binghamton called D's Nuts, and it got you into comedy. Could you tell our listeners that story?
Yeah, well, what happened was after I was I was wrestling. I was doing really well wrestling-wise, but I was going from 150 to 34 every week, so I was just really kind of fucking burned out, hungry. And then they had this vocal programming thing where it was uncensored. Anybody could just call in, and they would try to have real conversations. about like real things, and I'd be like, hey, you know Devane? They're like, oh, Devane on my dick, and just hang up the phone, and then just laugh to myself. But then after I was done wrestling, I'm like, oh, I actually got my own show. So I went down and learned like the studio and learned like, I got a couple of my friends in the wrestling teams to sit there, and we had these like these interviews with like this Budweiser model, and then people were calling in. They were like, "You suck," or "You're Vanilla Ice," and I was only 17 back then, so I'm sure I did kind of suck. But it was like it was going pretty well for a while. But then this girl calls in, and she's like, "My name is Hannah. People are gonna call and talk shit about me anyway, so they can go right ahead." And then next thing I know, the whole school is calling in about this girl Hannah, saying, Hannah's a whore, and she stole my jeans and a laundry machine, and then one guy calls up and he's like, Hannah, one night I came over, I was fucked up, and you wouldn't let me touch your tits, how come? Then they start going back and forth, and I'm laughing because I'm happy that they're not making fun of me anymore, and I got my 5 friends laughing. Then Hannah decides to come down to the studio while it's on air and sits in front and just starts taking calls. And I'm like, well, we have Hannah here. And people are like, Hannah, can I park my car if you're snatched? Just saying the most vile thing. And she's trying to come back, but her comebacks are terrible. And then everyone starts calling in and, like, making fun of her. But she sort of brought it upon herself by saying people were going to talk shit about me and came down to the studio. So then she goes back to her dorm, and people start throwing water balloons at her and chanting her name. And then the kid she hooked up with named Seth, he came down, and he's like, hey, this is the ass, and Hannah called every week. So then it's like fucking Jerry Springer on my show, and it's a 3-hour show, uncensored. People are calling in. So then she decides to sue the school for $20 million. Sues me for $20 million for negligence.
$20 million.
$20 million. And then my dad's like, you go to school for 1 month and you come home with a fucking $20 million lawsuit. Can you just go to class? Oh, that's bad of me, And then it ended up going to the Supreme Court in New York. And then they ended up, they threw it out, which was good, but I can't believe that they even had to have to watch the show.
That's ridiculous, dude.
And it was like, and then there were no more shows on Binghamton Television after that. It was like, everything had to have a disclaimer.
That's some
Crazy.
fucked up shit, man. Adam, this is Ramses from the Word on the Street. I follow you. Love your shit, dude. Definitely. I have some questions myself here. Well, first of all, you mentioned hecklers. Are you, like, you've been doing it, how many years?
Like 15 years.
Okay, so you've been doing comedy 15 years. Are you able to tell, like, the types of hecklers? Like, do you know when you're gonna get when someone's heckling you and you're like, that guy is gonna get violent if I push him?
I mean, a lot of times, like, I fuck with the crowd first, and then, but you could see if someone's clearly not enjoying it, and if they're not, I just leave them alone. Sometimes you have people their whole objective is to heckle, so that in that case, I don't want to give them the attention. But other times, like, people are laughing and they're heckling like they're just, like, trying to add on to your joke and laughing. Those are the worst type of hecklers because they're having a good time and their heart's in the right place. They're just being annoying and just, like, disrupting the flow of the show. But so it's like, there's definitely different types of hecklers.
Yeah, those squawkers, man. And I did see a video, like, how many have gotten violent with you? I saw the wedding video where
that was so fucking funny, dude. Oh my
Sebastian
god.
Bach or Bon Jovi, whatever that crossbreed
Yeah,
was.
that guy.
Yeah, how many people have actually, like, taken swings at you or attacked you, man?
Swings? No. I mean, I was doing a clean show on a cruise where a guy came up and he's like, let's fight. And there's, like, kids in the crowd. And I'm like, dude, relax. And he's like, well, yeah, you're a pussy. And I'm like, I'm not a pussy. I'm making, a couple hundred G's for this fucking year doing this cruise ship. So I'm not going to all of a sudden, ruin it for you, But I've done after prom shows. That number's very inflating, by the way. But I did shows where after prom, where like they bring the whole prom. It was a Catholic school prom. They brought it to the comedy show, and I was making fun of this one guy, and he got up and like got in my face, and I was like, "Sit down, dude," and he just sat down. It's like, so you don't really like, I try not to have people wait for me after shows. A couple times I did a show in Santa Cruz once, actually, and there was like a group of Mexican people, and I said something to them, like, I forgot, what wasn't that offensive? Like, was this Cinco de Mayo? And then the guy threw a piece of cake at me. Oh. And then they had to escort me out, after the show. I had to have, like, security walk me to the car. Mm-hmm. And
what
then
happened? Sorry. I just have a question. Like, if you do like get into a fight on a cruise ship, like I'm sure they have like a a cop or two, do they lock you in like the hold or some shit? What the?
No,
fuck?
well, if they got into a fight, I think they probably just if you ended up doing something like that, they would just fly you off the next island. I've done comics that like they've had drugs on them or weed or I knew a comic that like was too drunk during the day and he got to fly out the next day. And actually, it's funny you say that. They had a security guy. They wouldn't let him out of his room. He had to only to use the bathroom or something. So or if he gets food, he had to get escorted by the people to get food.
That's fucked up, man.
I want to fuck up enough to be at that level on a cruise ship. Jesus.
Yeah, no, he was he was drunk. He was drunk during the day, and then he was hitting on like a girl who was like 16, but he said she was older. She did look older. I'll give him that. But then the girl's grandma complained.
Because I was wondering, isn't it illegal if it's offshore? I don't know. Well, we won't go there. Adam, going back to the kind of heckling shit. All right, now honestly, you're talking to me now. No bullshit, real talk here. There've got to be fighters out there. You of course have follow them on Twitter, people at MMARoasted on Twitter. There's got to be fighters who just can't take a joke. Like I know people. I have friends that just can't take a joke. Honestly, how many times have you had to just like bite the bullet and apologize to a fighter? And like, is anyone on your personal like do not fuck with list?
Oh, well, I've gotten blocked by fighters. Like Tito blocked me and John Jones blocked me. So I like
John Jones has blocked everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the thing. It's like I'm not trying to fight any fighter or anybody. You know, so it's just these are all just jokes and they're made to make people laugh. It's more like fans of people that are like, you're fucking dead, or I'm going to kill you. You know, that it's never been a fighter that's ever said anything. The only time I've ever been a little nervous was when I hung out with Mayhem and Seer one night. They came
I was going to ask you about Mayhem, dude. There was a beef. I've heard the rumors. I've heard the word on the street. Tell the story, man. Come on.
Oh, no. Mayhem came over my house last night. We hung out. But one time before a comedy show, I didn't invite him to a party, and he got mad. And he was like, you want to a party? How come? And I'm like, So then he punched me in the stomach like as a joke, and I'm like, okay, this is before a show, and he was doing comedy, and I was doing comedy afterwards. Then he comes around with a left hook, hits me in my forehead, right, like temple, and then I was like, dude, why did you just punch me, you know? And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry, man, and my head blew up, like it was like a huge bump, like it was like a cartoon bump, you know? And I'm like, bro, I got to perform for an hour, and then he started crying. He's like, I'm sorry, man, I didn't mean to hurt you. And then I'm like, you punched me, and then you start crying. Like, what the fuck?
He seems like the kind of guy. He seems like that kind of guy to where he's just not. He's just playing around. He's like that kind of animal. Like, did he hit you 100%, or was it more like 50?
No. He would have knocked me out if I punched you. But he punched me hard. I mean, he thought he broke his hand. But it was like, but then he got into what bothered me the most. Like, bro, I didn't know that you couldn't fight. I'm like, I didn't know we were in a fight. I thought we're in a fucking stand-up comedy show. I didn't bring headgear. We're not sparring, you know. But
you're cool now.
Like that. Of course, we were cool after that, you know. But he's more like the dog. It's just like plays too rough with other dogs, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, after that whole thing with the church incident, you know, I was making jokes about it because that's my job is make jokes about that stuff, and I was like, yeah, Mayhem took Lay and Pray to a whole new level or something. And then Seer got mad. He was like, you're fucking dead. And I hung out with Seer. So I called him, and I'm like, bro, you know, these are just jokes, man, you know. And he's like, okay, I know. It's all right. But that was like, the last guy I wanted to piss off as an Afghan fighter in the UFC, you know.
Oh, fuck yeah, man. Okay, so you host you do your own podcast. I have to ask. So I'm treading this next question. I'm treading on thin ice here, man. But in your opinion, you know, there's all these MMA movies that come out. Most of them are absolute pieces of garbage. So I'll ask you, what is the lamest MMA movie of all time in your opinion?
The lamest MMA movie. I haven't seen that many, dude. The only one I've ever seen is Never Back Down. That's the only one I've seen.
Oh, you haven't?
But I've watched it a couple times. So if it was that lame, I wouldn't have watched it 3 or 4 times. So
wait, are we talking about part 1 or part 2?
I never saw part 2, but I don't do the podcast with Scott anymore. We don't do the podcast together.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay. Well, then I'm not on thin ice, man. You've never seen Never Back Down 2, The Beatdown?
I've never seen that. No.
Oh my God, man! You have to set aside some time as soon as possible, dude.
Along with Supreme Champion with Stephen Bonner.
That is another good
man.
one, man. No, well, like I love Scott Epstein. I follow him on Twitter all the time. He's a great guy. He teaches the kids too. I believe he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Well, actually, if it's not too personal, you guys aren't doing the podcast together? What's up?
No, we just had like a difference of, nothing. Scott, me and Scott are so cool. Scott's a good dude. We just decided to go a different way.
No, I got you, man. So what is the deal with your podcast right now?
It's MMARoasted podcast, and then I do two. I have Adam Hunter's World, also both on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud, and it was good. Last week we had John Dodson on and Gerald Harris, and the show Old. We told her whole story about Brian Caraway, which is pretty crazy.
What are your thoughts on Brian Caraway?
I don't know. I don't know the guy at all. I mean, he's got a hot girlfriend. He stays pretty hot, and he's a good fighter. I think that it's one of those things where when he got the $130,000 from Pat Haley, who seems like a real nice guy. He should have just been like, thank you, versus like, I don't feel bad at all, you shouldn't smoke pot. It's like when you start doing stuff like that, you're not going to endear yourself to many fans, unless you're trying to be a heel, which I don't think he's trying to do. So my thoughts are that's really all the thoughts I have on him. I mean, and then Elbow and Kat Zingano, if that's true, that's ridiculous. Like, and according to her, it's true, and her husband, it's true, and it's like,
yeah, but where's the proof, this and that. So you got to give the guys the benefit of the doubt.
It's like, and that's the thing. I never try to go too personal on people because I don't know. It's like when the whole Phil Davis thing happened. Phil's a friend of mine. He's a nice guy. But with the whole thing with his girlfriend saying he was too rough in bed, it's like hard for us to make jokes because I don't know. You don't want to accuse somebody of doing something at the same time. You try to make light of it. You try to make a joke out of it. So I'm like, Phil Davis, after that happened, he got promoted to Black Pup by Lloyd Irvin. Like that kind of thing where I can make a joke that way.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, man, like, what is off limits as far as like, because we all know, the Twitter's pretty big with the UFC. We all know they're watching, especially like an account like yours, MMA Roasted. What is like off limits? Like, you ever gonna do some Fertitta or Dana White jokes? Like, real talk.
Well, no, Dana follows me, and he seems to like the joke. Yeah, of course. I mean, to me, off limits are like, what are off limits? Sometimes
kids, maybe
jokes about
Fallon
people
Fox.
that are. So Fallon Fox definitely not off limits, but sometimes people say to me what's name came to my show recently.
You had Chael Sonnen on, dude. That was awesome. How the hell did you score that? I mean, I know people, but I'm jealous, man. I just gotta say.
I was the head writer for the MMA Awards a couple of years, and then Chael was the host, so we became friends that way. I'm probably going to see Chael today, actually. But like for Colton Smith, like came to my show, super nice guy, Army guy, and I'll make jokes about his fighting style as being boring. But I took a picture with him, and people were like, Colton Smith looks like someone had Down syndrome. Like to me, that's off limits because it's like that's the thing where I don't get into. I don't want to make fun of people with Down syndrome. Like the guy with one arm, Nick Newell. If I have a one arm joke, I have to make sure it's super funny, but it's not like, I don't like to make disability jokes. Really,
Yeah.
To me, that's sort of like, it's sort of being a bully, kind of.
Yeah, but how hard is it when you've got a good one though? I've been there, man.
It's hard, man. That's hard. It's very hard. It's really really hard. But there's also, you got to think of like how funny is it versus who is it going to offend.
Exactly.
So you have to get to weigh it in. Like they would joke about Nick Newell. I go, Nick Newell has one arm. That's really impressive. The only thing easier with one arm would be deciding which hand to jerk off with. So that's not. To me, that's like, okay, it's a joke where it's funny and it's not like really. Is that really going to piss off Nick Newell? So,
last question I have before I just give it back to Jake to close it out with you, man. Adam, the podcast that you're doing, do you have, like, obviously we're doing a podcast. I got my own podcast. I'm asking for any fucking advice here, anything to avoid, anything you should probably do early. Is it successful? Is it like, is doing a podcast like are you broadcasting to more people than you actually perform to at a comedy show? Like, is it worth it in the long run, or is it still like a
yeah, I mean,
struggling
to me
thing?
it's worth it because it's like, people can listen to it any time versus like comedy show they have to go to like from 8 to 9 or whatever it is. And also, people listen to it at work, and you're constantly, as a comedian, you're always in touch with the fans that way, you know? Sometimes it's hard when, like, for me, I don't want to, like, you know, piss off, you know, certain people. Like, I had Sean McCorkle go on, you know, admitting to using testosterone and, like, saying, okay, this one knew that one. And then, like, yeah, you don't want to be I don't want to be the center of controversy. You know, that's not really what I want. I'm not trying to bring down any type of, you know. So that's where it gets a little bit rough, because sometimes you want people to listen to it, but, you know, I try to do mine differently. I think that's the thing. It's like you want to be different with your podcast. It's like, because the fighters get asked the same questions over and over again. You know, who are the people you train with? Which I ask too. But, you know, like you know, John Dotson talked about whipping out his cock last week, and or one time in front of a girl to prove that he would bang her, and then she laughed at him. But, like, to me, that's a great story, because people aren't going to hear that story on other podcasts, you know?
Yeah. No, awesome, dude. And thanks again, Adam. And just if you do see Chael Sonnen, tell him that the word on the street says hello. He should know what the fuck I'm talking about, or it'll be just an awkward moment. Either way, just do it, man.
I will do that.
Yeah, we do the Word on the Street podcast with his boxing coach, Coach Jamie Huey, if you are familiar with him. You mentioned Dana White's following you. I don't know if you get free passes to UFCs, but how close are you being to being a company man?
I don't know. I just try to do my own thing, you know. I get enough... you know, comedy's right now my main concern. So, just trying to be as funny as possible and make people laugh as much as possible. And, you know, I don't try to hit anybody up for tickets and stuff, because just like I'm sure everyone in the world, I'm sure everyone's doing that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I know MMA Roasted. It's about a year and a half old. What made you start MMA Roasted, and when was the first moment you realized holy shit, this is turning into a big thing?
Well, you know, the thing was, like, I was doing the videos and stuff, and people were just hating on it, you know, like, you suck, fuck you, you're the worst. And I was like, ugh. But I had all these funny jokes, like, because when I was writing for the MMA awards, I would write, like, 1,000 jokes, but I would have nowhere to really, like, to tell them, and then, like, they were kind of being strict on, they didn't want to offend people and stuff. I'm like, these are just jokes just wasting around. So then I started putting them up, and then I was doing it for my own Twitter account, but people weren't really getting it that much, because I only had, like, out of the 7,000 people that follow me, only, like, you know, 50 knew about MMA, you know. It's more like comedy people. So then I was like, well, what if I just do a separate MMA Roasted account? And once, like, I started getting, like, Uriah Faber, like getting into, like, a little, like, funny feuds with me, and then, like, you know, all these, like Ronda Rousey, I was like, holy shit. Once I started getting, like, you know, like, one time I had, like, 980 retweets. One was over 1,000 retweets.
Damn.
I was like, whoa, this is pretty crazy. You know, when I went, like the other night I wrote, like, Frankie Edgar is the answer to the question, who gets screwed out of the most fights? And then Frankie Edgar retweets it, you know? Like, that's when I started making fun of specific fighters that I didn't even know were following me, and then they were retweeting it.
Yeah.
I was like, but now I get fighters that ask me, sometimes they'll DM me to make fun of them. Like, hey, man, I got a fight coming up. I need to get some hype. Yeah, will you please roast me? It would be an honor to be roasted. Nice. Or I get fighters that, like, email me jokes about other fighters.
All right. Awesome.
Like yeah. I have jokes, like what's his name? Vinny Magalese was emailing me jokes about Phil Davis before his fight.
That's awesome.
Arsenio Hall jokes, I'm sure.
Yeah, he was like, and they were really funny jokes. And then I had Diego Sanchez emailing me jokes about Benavidez. I had all these guys that are DMing me jokes about other fighters. I was like,
all right, you know, as a comic, jokes are like kids, and you're not supposed to pick your favorite kid, but you've made a lot of MMA Roasted tweets. Do you have one tweet in particular that you look at like, fuck yeah, this is my favorite MMA Roasted tweet?
Probably the one where I go, I said Frankie Edgar has had more controversial decisions than Planned Parenthood.
That is a good one.
Was that the most tweeted back at and
Yeah, that
retweeted?
one. I think you know what happened. Ronda Rousey retweeted that, and then all of a sudden it got like 1,000 something retweets. I was like, holy shit!
Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah!
I do get concerned sometimes that I'm going to go to an MMA event and someone's going to punch me in the face with a video camera. I'm like, fuck! It's not going to. Someone's going to be a world star.
Yeah, you better watch out for Bob Sapp, dude. I love your Bob Sapp material, though. We interviewed him.
He's actually the nicest out of everyone. He's always coming out. I'm like, he's like, hey man, just so you know, Bob Sapp's a fan of MMARoasted. I'm like, that guy couldn't be nicer. That's sometimes it's like, but at the same time, what he's doing is not like, I don't think it's helping the sport, you know.
We spoke with Bob Sapp last week. Bob Sapp and Ramses are both wrapped up in the world of MMA works, MMA conspiracies. What do you think about the thought that the UFC is rigging fights for profit?
I don't think they're rigging any fight. I mean, I know tons of fighters, and not one of them has ever even. I mean, these guys train their asses off. They go through sick camps and like, I think, I don't know, they're UFC rigged fights. I think sometimes the fighters, they break,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think it's more just the fighter themselves that like, is, get to a point where, I mean, I remember I was wrestling with this guy, Eric Bradley, who's on the new season of the Bellator, right? He was, the guy took third for Penn State, third in the country at one point. Then he went to jail for something, and then now he's on Bellator. Bellator's a reality show. I remember wrestling against that guy, going, "There's nothing I can do against this guy." Like, I mean, I'm gonna try, but I don't know. I don't see where I can take this guy. Like, and I think sometimes that there's fighters. Sometimes you see like Abel Trujillo, who was a great fighter, but I think at a certain point in his last fight against that guy who wants to fight BJ Penn, I can't pronounce his name, but his last fight, he got to a point where he was just like, fuck, man, like, he'd been in this position before,
Mm-hmm.
where a guy is being manhandled like this, and Abel's a good guy. I mean, he's a fucking badass fighter. He's a great fighter. I think he'll like be back. But I just think that there's certain times you get into a fight, you get into any type of situation where you're just like, fuck, man, like, and that's when it separates the great fighters from the good ones. Those great ones who are like, they find a way to win, the Anderson Silva, he finds a way to win.
Silva Jones, this is the last MMA question I'll ask. Silva Jones, when it comes down to it, which one is going to be remembered as the greatest of all time?
Jones never lost, so Silva has 6 losses. So then you got to go with Jones. You got to go with Jones if he keeps the way he is. The problem I think with John Jones is going to be John Jones. Is like, he's made everyone look bad so far. There's no one that's even come close to beating him. I mean, he's never taken a punch, a real punch. He's never had to. Yep. So it's like, can he take a punch? Is going to be that's going to be the question. No one's tested his chin yet. But if John Jones keeps with Greg Jackson, and then when I met Greg Jackson, he said that John Jones is the most coachable fighter he's ever coached. The guy's got no ego. He's a sponge. He's willing to learn everything. So if he stays on that course, I mean, how can he not go down as the best fighter of all time? I mean, he's just tapping out guys like Machida and Shogun and like Belfort. I mean, it's like, who else is doing that?
Yeah. The last question we've got before we let you get all your plugs out.
Sure.
We used to ask what people's favorite flavor of ice cream was, but we recently hit our first anniversary. We're switching it up. Bob Sapp, or I'll ask, what is your favorite 2-topping combination on a pizza? Bob Sapp answered shrimp and mayo. Not your favorite 2, but your favorite two in combination with one another. It speaks a lot to a man what sort of flavors they like on your palate. I assume you're not going to say shrimp and mayo like Bob Sapp, but if you're ordering a pizza with two toppings, what are you getting?
Ham and pineapple.
Ham and pineapple. That's a very solid. You have the meatiness of the ham, the sweetness of the pineapple. This is a man. He has a refined palate. Follow him on Twitter, MMARoasted. Also visit AdamHunter.com. How else can we find Adam Hunter's World, the MMA Roasted podcast?
Also,
all good shit.
Adam Comedian, MMA Roasted podcast on iTunes, Adam Hunter's World on iTunes, or SoundCloud. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on your show.
Adam, thank you for coming on, and we wish you the best and hope to have you on again sometime in the future.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Take it easy, buddy.
Later.
Bye.
Cool dude.
And that was Adam Hunter. What was that?
Oh, I was just saying he was a cool dude, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. He seemed to have a lot of funny stories. You know, working as a stand-up comic, especially working on cruise ships for so long, you're gonna have a fuckload of interesting stories. If you haven't heard his appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast yet, check it out along with his podcast, MMA Roasted and Adam Hunter's World. I guess we're going to open the phones up to calls. If anybody wants to call in, the phone number is 213-457-3380, or you can Skype us at the MMA Podcast. We had just finished talking about the news, and we were just getting into the fights we're pumped for. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's talk about the fights we're pumped for June 2013.
Let's do it.
All right, mine is pretty simple for pretty simple reasonings. We got Jake Shields and Tyron Woodley. Do I think it's going to be the most exciting fight in the world? Maybe not. Shields is boring as fuck, but I think Woodley wins. Woodley's one of my favorite fighters. Shields is one of my least favorite fighters, and I just want to see this bum Jake Shields get his face beat in. So pretty simply, Woodley Shields. It's not the strongest month for UFCs. You have UFC on Fuel 10, which is not deep whatsoever. Really, the only two compelling fights are Big Nog Werdum and Cavalcante versus Silva. You also have UFC 161, Rashad versus Henderson, which might be a good fight. It might be the worst fight we've ever seen. Chael Sonnen would have been fighting Shogun Rua on it, but was not able to get the visa to fight in Winnipeg. You also got Nelson Miocic, Jimmo Pekrajic, Alexis Davis, and Rosie Sexton, Pat Barry, and Sean Jordan. Who you got for your fight you're pumped for June?
I gotta say, the only fight that I care about as far as Saturday goes, I haven't looked at the entire month of June, but Saturday, tomorrow, I do want to see the Eric Silva fight. I don't even know who the fuck he's fighting. Probably another Brazilian. I don't know. But I'm excited about seeing Eric Silva because I do believe that he's the only fucking Silva worth a damn. So I will be checking that out. Yeah, he lost to John Fitch. Nobody expected that. I don't know what the hell happened, but, you know, obviously you can't go undefeated in the UFC and still... at some point, having a loss does help you as a fighter, especially if it's a loss where you weren't just knocked the fuck out, which John Fitch didn't do. If you're going to lose to anybody, it'd be a John Fitch. You know, you learn from that. You're not going to get wrestle-fucked again. I think Eric Silva's going to come back. I'm excited to see him. And that's me, like, not even being, you know, I got a thing with these Brazilians, man. Not with their women. The women are always welcome. These Brazilian fighters, man, I don't like them, but I like Eric Silva. So that is going to be that's the beatdown I'm looking forward to the most.
We're both looking forward to a couple of beatdowns, Ramses and Eric Silva, me and Tyron Woodley. So make sure you catch those fights. There were a shitload of fights announced. We found out the two headlining fights on the first two UFC on Fox Sports 1 cards. We'll get to those in a little bit. But first, we have two fights announced for UFC 163. Two fights, both at light heavyweight. First off, we got Robert Drysdale signing to fight Ednaldo Oliveira at 205. Oliveira, most people are assuming, is just a sacrificial lamb to get Drysdale his first win. Drysdale's undefeated, all his wins by first-round submission. I think it's safe to say he'll win this fight, but how far do you think Robert Drysdale is able to climb up the ranks at light heavyweight?
You know, I think we talked about this maybe yesterday. I still don't know who Robert Drysdale is. And Jake, man, this fight to me, it sounds like he's gonna win just because, like, you know who he is, and I don't know who this other Oliveira bum is. Never heard of him before. This thing this looks like what I call a layup fight. Just a gimme, you know, if you're playing golf, if you're that sort of individual, that sort of fancy man. You're not a fancy boy for playing golf, by the way, you're a fancy man. There's a distinction. Cigars, boating, exotic foreign women, that makes you a fancy man. Other men, that makes you a fancy boy. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the Robert Drysdale fight, and it looks like we got a caller from the 56 Ace area code. It looks like he's calling from Florida. Caller, can we ask your name? Who is calling in?
What's up? It's John.
John, how's it going? Is this Jones or just a random John we're talking to?
Hi. No, it's just John Isaacson. I follow Ramses.
All right, cool. Thank you for calling in. Did you have anything in particular you wanted to talk about, or did you just want to call in and shoot the shit?
Yeah. How do you guys feel about the Shogun fight? You think it's like as good as the Wanderlei fight, or it's kind of like ruining it?
I'll start then pass it off to Ramses. This definitely works better for Chael. A fight against Vanderlei really wasn't going to help him at all. I mean, come on, moving from fighting Anderson Silva to John Jones, the two people we think of as the best two in the world, to fighting a Vanderlei Silva that most people think should have retired 2 years ago. A fight against Shogun is at least a fight against a top 10 respected fighter, and a fight that's going to get Chael back in the title hunt. I don't know if a fight against Vanderlei can necessarily do that style-wise. I think it's just as good as a matchup. I think both of these matches really favor Chael. And, there are guys who could give Chael a big problem at 205. I don't think Shogun or Vanderlei, either one, are one of those problems. Ramses?
Yeah, well, I'll just be fucking honest, dude. The delay in the fight definitely does not help Chael Sonnen. I do believe at the end of the day he's going to beat Shogun's ass, hands down. I believe he's going to win no matter what. But there's a reason that you always see Chael jumping on these fights short notice. He's like, get me in there, whatever. It's because the longer, I believe, this is just my opinion, the longer he has to think about a fight and prepare for it, the more like the head creep sets in to where you're overthinking shit. But Chael always has, his first impulse is, I'll take the fight, I'll fight the guy. There's probably a reason for that. I think if, for example, if John Jones had accepted the fight against Chael at UFC 151 and they had fought right then and there on 8 days, 9 days notice, I think Chael Sonnen probably would have whooped his ass. But of course, John did the smart thing, of course. He did wait. That's what Shogun apparently is doing, in my opinion. But of course, the UFC came into play. They know the heat, the buzz. As soon as that Shogun Sonnen fight was going around the Twitters and whatnot, they knew they had a main event on their hands, so they did the right thing. Especially since John Jones's toe is all fucked up. He ain't coming back for that main event. So yeah, he whooped Shogun's ass, but the delay is not going to help him. On short notice, I think Chael Sonnen wins 9 out of 10 fights. That's my opinion. Shit.
What do you think, caller?
I don't know. I kind of like the Wanderlei fight better, though. I mean, you think Chael's going to get back into title contention anytime soon? You know what I'm saying? I'd rather him take out these bums, you know? Have you seen the video Wanderlei posted?
Which one?
Recently, or the kind of...
No, the one
in the van?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you... What did you think of the van video? Did you think Vanderlei was in the right to be calling out Sonnen, or was he just being a fancy boy?
Yeah, I think he was just being a fancy boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're in the car with a PR person for the UFC and everything. You know, what do you expect Chael to do? Get in his face and start, yelling in a car like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I happen to know that.
Acting like a total pussy like that, you know.
Yep, that took place. That van ride was in my city, my home city of Austin, Texas. Like, as I'm watching the video, I see the buildings in the background. And I'm like, holy shit, I work there. And then, but yeah, the true story is I heard it, man. I heard it straight from the driver and Chael Sonnen. The driver, Vanderlei Silva. He was fucking getting into that van. Vanderlei in the van. on crutches, man. He was walking on a cane that entire day. That's why he is at bum status. And yeah, we all know why Vanderlei said no to that fight, people. He knew it was a ass beating was like imminent, Ruage, man. That's a fucking word.
And we actually had 2 callers call in during that rant. I'll start off with the one who called in first. Area code 484. Caller, who is calling in? How should we identify you?
Yo, what's up? It's one half of the Moguls.
Oh, it's the Mogul. What up?
What's up, man? What happened with the Derek Bronson fight? They canceled it?
We'll talk about that in a quick second. Yeah, the Derek Brunson fight. Apparently, Ronnie Marks got into a car wreck. That may not have been a car wreck. Shit's looking a little sketchy. But we also had another caller. I want to figure out who it is calling from area code 347. Caller, who we got?
You could call me the Truth.
You can call him the Truth, and I'm assuming it's Yao the Truth from Queens, New York. What's going on, buddy?
What's up? How you guys doing?
Good. We just chatted with MMA Roasted. So we got John on, we got the Mogul on, we got Yao the Truth on. We're talking about Vanderlei talking shit to Chael Sonnen in the car, being a fancy boy, being a bum. I think we all can agree on that. But we sort of disagreed. Our boy John thinks that Chael really isn't that close to a title fight anyway, so he should just take out this bum and Vanderlei Silva, settle the beef. I like him fighting Sonnen because I think it gets him closer to that shot. It puts him back in relevance. Yao, and we'll start it off with you because you called first, Mogul. What do you think about Chael fighting Showbum as compared to Vanderlei Silva? Which one would you have rather seen?
Definitely, I'd rather see him fight Vanderlei. I think he has a better shot. But if you were talking about when he was in the vein, I think you said with Chael.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely bitching Chael out. You could tell Chael got nervous.
No way, man. No way.
Ooh.
Dude,
Vanderlei was on a cane.
He's like, you need to watch your mouth before people like that lose their teeth in Brazil or something. And Chael's like, oh, okay.
What's he gonna do? Fight the man for free? Come on.
Yeah, I thought he was an American gangster.
He's smarter than that. Look, the truth is, honestly, that day, Vanderlei was injured. He was just on a publicity tour. He was literally walking on a cane. How's Chael gonna look? That's
even more of a reason.
No. How's Chael gonna look if he beats up a fucking guy on a cane, dude? Come on.
But
that's the true story. Nobody knew it though. No, I mean, I'm just nobody knew it, but honestly, Vanderlei was injured at the time, just talking shit like a crazy old man. He looks like he's 63 years old. I wouldn't have hit him either.
What I'm saying though is Chael has no problem saying stuff when he's on Fuel TV or an interview with Ariel Helwani, but when someone confronts him face to face and he doesn't say nothing, he looks like in my opinion, he looks like a fancy boy.
I gotta quote the Joker: "If you're good at it, never do it for free."
No, I don't think. You were expecting to fight in the van. He called Vanderlei out, and Vanderlei didn't do anything. He didn't take the fight.
I'm not saying fight him in the van. I'm saying verbally defend yourself. Like he has no problem talking shit when nobody's around, but when people are around, he becomes a fancy boy. So
I don't know. I think.
Like that.
I think he sort of was just soaking it up, like, wow. So I'm not allowed to make fun of Brazil, because as far as being an American and especially being a Floridian, dude, I have heard so many people talk shit about Americans. I've heard so many people talk shit about the state of Florida and Floridians. Yeah. And when I hear it, what is the response I take? Do I lash out and say, "Oh, here in Florida, if you talk shit about us, I'm gonna knock your teeth in, and you better not do it this." No, I just brush it off because I know it's not threatening me. Some bullshit. Yao, what do you think about the van incident? Who was in the right? Was Sonnen right to sort of sit there and enjoy it, or should he have spoken up, spoke his mind?
Yeah, I think it was great, him just sitting there, just smiling. that's one thing people don't talk about. He was smiling the whole time, kind of laughing at Vanderlei. So, Chael's a gentleman. He's house trained. He's not just going to fight somebody in a van, He's going to get that contract signed and fight him. But as far as, like, who would I rather see him fight between Shogun and Vanderlei, I would really like to see the Vanderlei fight more because it would be funnier, the lead up to the fight.
For sure, and we will move on to that next topic, and that sort of bumped up talking about Sonnen versus Shogun. I don't know if we touched on the Sonnen versus Shogun matchup with you. What do you think about the match? Who are you leaning toward? Who you got, cocksucker?
I got to go with Chael Sonnen. Anytime Chael Sonnen gets in there, I got to be by his side, But the match is going to be great. I'm 90% sure I'll be there live in Boston. I'm really looking forward to seeing Shogun's legs, how tired they're going to get from trying to defend Chael's takedowns, But it's going to be exciting and room for Chael Sonnen.
Chael Sonnen, I think most people are leaning that way. Mokel, you brought up a very interesting story, and for everyone listening, the speaking list will be in order of people calling in. It's going to be myself, then Ramses, then John from the 5-6 Ace, then Wu-Tang, then Yao. So me, Ramses, John, the Mogul, and then Yao. The Mogul called up talking about this Ronnie Marks incident, which I guess we have time to talk about. Ronnie Marks backing out of his fight against Derek Brunson literally the day before the fight, saying he got in a car accident. Front Row Brian, along with other MMA sources, are calling this bullshit. What are your early thoughts on this quote-unquote car accident? Ramses, I'll start with you.
Yeah, this thing's total bullshit, man. I saw the picture. For some reason, the picture is of the wrecked car, and then Mr. Hane Marks himself still, for some reason, sitting in the car with a neck brace on. Right away, that sets off warning signs in my mind. It's like, what? You waited for the photographer before you even got out? No. And then look at the car. People, I have been in a worse collision. I hit somebody doing 45 in my stupid Nissan. I don't remember what it was. It was a Nissan. I think it was a Sentra or whatever. And like the fucking, like the damage done to the front end was far worse than this Hane Marks incident. And I wasn't fucked up at all. I didn't even have to get checked out. The next day my neck hurt a little bit, but I was never knocked out. Like the only way this guy got fucked up is if he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. And even then, it's like, what? You're telling me the airbag didn't deploy? This story ain't making any fucking sense. He was supposedly heading to the weigh-ins. I don't buy it for 1 second. I'm calling bullshit. What do you guys think,
John?
Yeah, I think the work was in. I mean, if you look at that car, it looks like it was fake. I think they got show money too. I don't know. The day of the weigh-in and everything, a couple hours before, I got to say the work was in.
What do you think, Wu-Tang?
I honestly have no idea what happened. I'm just listening to you. I've seen the headline, but I mean, I don't know why he would fake it. Like I don't see what unless he was like scared. But I doubt Ronnie Marks was scared to fight. I don't know. Was the picture bad?
It's like the pussiest ass wreck you've ever seen. It's basically a fender bender. Like the front end of the car is dented in a little bit. He's saying he was knocked unconscious somehow, which would only happen if the airbag was disabled and he was not wearing a seatbelt. This is a low impact, low speed collision. I can tell. I've been there. Trust me.
So you're saying he's a fancy boy?
Fancy boy, definitely. I'm calling it right now.
Should I start playing the music?
Let's do it, man. Drop that shit, you know what I'm saying? Hane Marks, you are the fancy boy of Friday, and I guess of the week. Why not? You taking over, sucker. Fucking fancy boy. Faking car accidents, get out of the fight. Come on, man. Just admit you had an anxiety attack. Tell the truth.
He's a fancy boy. Alright, yeah, what do you think about this fancy boy, Ronnie Marks?
This is just silly. I mean, honestly, really a car accident. And I think I saw the picture. I don't remember. I was tired, but
you were high on meth.
Bad. No, but it's really just ridiculous. And I hope Derek Brunson isn't mad, because if he would have just fought his last fight like he was a fighter, then he wouldn't even be fighting Ronnie Marks probably. So I hope he's not pissed off, because if he is, he's in this situation because of himself. So I'm really just targeting Derek Brunson because I don't like him because of how he fought against Chris Levin. But, yeah, this is just silly. The work is in.
Yeah, obviously referring to that fight at UFC 155 where he took a late fight against Chris Leben after Carlos Vimola dropped out and fought him to a pretty boring decision, one that Leben criticized him on. It was pretty goddamn shitty. We have a few more fights to talk about before we get to UFC 163. But first, or not UFC 163, UFC on Fuel 10. But first and foremost, I got to get my 10 seconds of sports in. I'll take a deep breath. This is 10 seconds every show where we talk about all sports, not MMA. Spurs go up in the Heat 1-0 in surprising fashion as Tony Parker leads San Antonio to a win in Miami. Boston and Chicago hold upper hand in the Stanley Cup Conference Final matchups against the Pittsburgh Penguins and LA Kings. MLB to suspend 20 players linked to Biogenesis Sketch TRT Company. Alright, that is the 10 solid seconds of sports. We're getting back to the fight announcements. I want to talk about a pair of UFC on Fox Sports 1-2 fights. But first off, we were getting at UFC 163 talking about Drysdale. Let's get back to that card for a moment. UFC 163 in August. I believe that's going to be in Rio, August 3rd. That's going to be the Aldo versus Pettis card. We'll talk about a fight that will be on the main card, unlike the Drysdale fight. Lyoto Machida and Phil Davis. Stylistically, I think this is going to be a nightmare fight for Phil. His whole strategy is letting people kind of come to him like Lyoto, but Lyoto is just a lot better at it. I think whatever Phil tries to do, he's going to get fucked. Ramses, what do you think? This has the makings very similar to Dan Henderson and Rashad Evans of being a horrible fight.
Yep, this is going to be a piece of shit fight on paper. I got to say, Lyoto Machida isn't the elusive striker anymore, all right? Just look at his last two fights. He's got nothing left. He's just getting in there for the goddamn paycheck. Phil Davis is still a little bit hungry, so he might put up a fight. But at the end of the day, he's a Greg Jackson fighter. He's a safe fighter. Phil Davis is also approaching bum status, if you ask me. He doesn't deserve to be in the top 10. Vinny Magalhaes should have whooped his ass, but, it was a bad day for him. The fact that Phil Davis couldn't knock out or finish Vinny tells you all you need to know about Phil Davis, all right? So this fucking fight, I probably won't even watch it. John, what do you think? Lyoto Machida versus Phil fucking Davis, Mr. Wonderful.
I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's an interesting fight. This will tell you if Phil Davis is finally for real or not. He had that fight against Rashad that didn't go his way. But Dan Henderson had a shot against Machida. He took him down. Phil Davis is a good wrestler too. We'll see. He has to be able to keep him down, and you got to close the distance with Machida. You can't let him play his game. And if he plays his game, it's just going to be a bullshit, boring ass fight like the Hendo fight. So if either he's going to get knocked out or he's going to be able to do some ground and pound. We'll see what happens. But I don't know how long Machida can stay out of the another title shot. He beats Phil Davis and then Hendo. All these fights. So I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a good fight.
What do you think, Mogul?
I think that there's two options when you fight Machida. You either stay back and get picked apart, or you come in and get knocked the fuck out. Sometimes you can get lucky like Shogun and land like an overhand, whatever. But I don't think Phil Davis could do it. I mean, he could potentially use his wrestling, get him up against the cage, take him down. I just don't see him doing that I think it's a 5-round fight. So I'm leaning towards definitely Machida, probably by knockout.
Yeah, Lyoto Davis, who you got? And don't be racist.
Look, honestly, Phil Davis is 3 takedowns away from winning this fight. It's that simple. 3 takedowns away from winning the biggest fight of his life and beating Lyoto Machida. Not to say that Lyoto Machida is a bum and he just going to lose horribly, but if Phil Davis could take Lyoto Machida down at the beginning of every single round, he can win this fight and just hold him down. But, when you're trying to close the distance to Lyoto Machida, it's very dangerous. but I believe in Phil Davis, and I believe he can win this fight. Oh, and Ramses, Phil Davis is not a Greg Jackson fighter. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that. He trains at, like, TriStar or whatever, don't he?
Well, he fights like one, so he's a Greg Jackson fighter.
Heyo!
Not TriStar either. He trains in San Diego with Lloyd Irvin. I forget the name of the camp. With Dominic Cruz.
Lloyd Irvin is
like
a rapist.
Alliance or whatever?
Yeah, Alliance MMA. Alliance,
No, it's Greg Jackson's camp, all right, people. Don't be deceived. Look at his fighting.
Lloyd Irvin, he's definitely someone you want to be associated with in MMA right now. Let's get to those UFC on Fox Sports 1-2 cards. We found out that Sonnen Shogun was going to headline the first UFC on Fox Sports 1 card. The second one will be headlined by a rematch between Martin Kampmann and Carlos Condit, the Natural Born Killer taking on the Hitman. It sounds like a match made in heaven. The Natural Born Killer does have the more impressive last few years. He does have the title shot. Kampmann hasn't gotten the UFC title shot yet, but Kampmann does have a victory against Condit under his belt. Condit's going to be trying to avenge it. Both of these guys are easily top 10 welterweights, maybe even top 5. It's a rematch we've all wanted to see for a while. Before I get my own thoughts in there, Ramses, what are your thoughts on the Hitman against the Natural Born Killer?
It's good that they're finally they're going to let Condit actually win a fight for once. All right, he had to drop the goddamn interim belt to GSP or whatever the fuck it was. That was embarrassing to see. It hurt me to watch, all right, because Carlos Condit is a good fighter, but he always holds back. He always does. Let it go, man. You got nothing left to lose. This is the fight where you have to fucking let it go all out, son, or else you're approaching not bum status, but like almost cut status. They're gonna start cutting your money, and you're gonna be like, "Wait, but I dropped the belt to GSP. I did what you asked me to." And they're gonna be like, "Yeah, son. Good luck proving that in a court of law." So, Carlos Condit, you have to win this fight. You have to whoop Martin Kampmann's ass, and I think he'll do it. God damn it! What do you think, John?
Yeah, I love this fight. I think Carlos is one of my favorite fighters. He always brings it. Kampman stole a fight from him, and I hope he knocks out Kampman and comes back into title contention. Condit's a bad man.
Mogul, what do you think?
Yeah, dude, I think Martin Kampman is the most underrated, overlooked fighter in that division. I think I said this before. I think he beat Diego Sanchez. I think he beat Jake Shields. I think the Daly was an early stoppage. The only fight that he really lost in the last 5 years is Hendricks. It's going to be a really, really good fight. Stylistically, it's a fucking great fight. But I see Kampman winning. I'm curious to see what the lines look like.
What's the truth, Yao?
The truth is, this is a bum fight, and it shouldn't even be a headliner. It should be on the prelims. It should be a main event prelim at this point. Carlos Condit is a bum. He lost to GSP, so his skills and technique are only going to decrease. He's going to lose fights. If he wins fights, they're not going to be impressive. I want to see Martin Kampman win because I want to see him fight Johnny Hendricks again. He was not supposed to get knocked out like that, and I can't wait to see it.
All right, in this last one, we're not going to talk about long. Donald Cerrone and Rafael Dos Anjos, both of them up and coming, trying to really get deep inside that top 10 at the lightweight division. Cerrone, Dos Anjos. In one word, who you got? Ramses?
Cerrone probably. He looked pretty good, especially coming off of the embarrassing ass whooping that Showtime delivered and uncorked on his ass. If you can come back from that embarrassing fight and just dominate your next one like he did, it's always a good sign. He still has the fire. He's still got that heat. He's probably shooting up that TRT or something now. He's got some extra help. It's working. Whatever you're doing, Cerrone, keep it up and you'll win.
That was a little bit more than one word. John, Cerrone, Dos Anjos, who you got?
I think Dos Anjos lost his last fight. I'm going with Cerrone.
All right, Wu-Tang, Cerrone, Dos Anjos, who you got?
Uno Dos Anjos.
Uno Dos Anjos. Yao, Donald Cerrone, and RDA. Draw. Ooh. Coming in hot with the truth. Speaking about coming in hot, we do have the UFC on Fuel TV 10 card to break down. But Ramses, you have a fight tip for us this week?
Oh, yeah. I call this one the She Spilled My Milk. All right, this maneuver. Look, you're sitting at a restaurant, just having a good time, trying to enjoy your little sandwich or your little shrimp cocktail, perhaps. And then you want some morning coffee, and some girl comes by. She's a new waitress or something. Maybe she's just fed up with her husband at home or something. She spills the coffee a little bit, splashes all over your little saucer. What you do is you grab her by the throat and you be like, she spilled my coffee. You headbutt her straight through the damn table, and then you pour that hot coffee mug all over her. I saw it in a goddamn commercial one time. That's your fight tip of the week. It's called She Spilled My Coffee. Trust me, it'll work. Word on the street.
That was actually really funny. Literally, I'm playing the PSA in the background, and when you just said she spilled my coffee, it went perfectly with the guy saying it in the PSA. She spilled my coffee. If you haven't seen those Canadian PSAs yet, I guess they're trying to put forth a good message of like, hey, you wouldn't beat the shit out of your waitress, so don't beat the shit out of your wife. They're pretty disturbing. You haven't seen it. It's like a scene out of Law and Order SVU or something. He tackles her. He's pouring hot coffee all over this poor broad. It's sad shit to see. But you know what? If she hadn't have spilled the coffee on him in the first place, he wouldn't have had to make her spill all that hot coffee over her face and tackle her and all that ridiculous shit.
That's right.
Just a few things to pass around for the UFC on Fuel 10 card. Tough Brazil 2. I didn't watch it. Ramses didn't watch it. John, Wu-Tang, Yao. Did any of you guys watch Tough Brazil 2?
No, I don't watch anything from that country.
Alright, nobody watched it, so we won't bother. It was apparently pretty crazy. There's this black guy named William Macariao who's fighting on the co-main, who's a big favorite. But other than that, fuck Tough Brazil 2, because none of us watched it. This whole card, not very compelling. A lot of people are complaining that it lacks depth. We are going to talk about Thiago Silva and Big Nog versus Werdum, but all the other fights on the card, which one in your eyes is the most compelling fight? Ramses, what you got?
For Saturday, I gotta say, it's still the Eric Silva one, man. That's the only one that matters. I do want to see Hani Jason though, because I think he's got some fucking skills. He's gonna uncork. I think he's gonna go far.
Hani Jason taking on Mike Wilkinson on the first fight, the opening fight on the main card on Fuel.
Yeah, rest in peace, Wilkinson. But good on you for going out there and taking the dive. That's all I gotta say. What are you looking forward to, John?
I'll go with the main event, Werdum versus Big Nog. Finally put Big Nog out of his misery and kick him out of the UFC.
Mogul,
you're after John Cocksucker. Who you got?
Yeah, to me, it's definitely Thiago Silva versus Rafael. I think that Thiago Silva is one of my favorite fighters. Just to watch him fight, he's just a really good, entertaining fighter. So, yeah, I'm going with Thiago too. I think he wins.
Yao?
I gotta go with my man Thiago Silva from the Black Billions camp, taking on Fei Zhao. Looking forward to that one.
Hell yeah, Thiago Silva. That actually transitions pretty well. We are going to be talking about Thiago Silva and Rafael Cavalcante next, but before we do, we got our stat of the day that is geared toward the fight. So let me play that little drop and bring you guys the stat of the day.
Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day!
Of Thiago Silva's 14 wins, 13 of those are by stoppage. He has 2 submissions and 11 KOs. His opponent, Rafael Cavalcante, is also a finisher, getting a knockout in all 11 of his victories.
Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day!
And they both don't like
Here comes the stat of the day!
And they both have a few no contests on their record. I think Silva has 2, Cavalcante has 1. But yeah, these are finishers. Out of 25 combined victories, 24 have ended. Only 1 single decision victory on Silva's record. We'll talk about Thiago Silva and Rafael Cavalcante. A, who you got? And B, who is going to piss clean for these motherfuckers? Ramses?
I don't even... who are these fucking people fighting? These Brazilians, man, they're a dime a dozen to me. I just hope they both get just so injured that you have no choice but to just. I just hope it's a bloodbath, man. I don't give a damn who wins, Thiago. So I think he smokes weed, so maybe I'll be on his side a little bit, just because he smokes weed and turns in that horse piss. What do you think, John?
I'm gonna go with Thiago. I don't think anyone's gonna, for how Brazil works. No one pops clean for anything there. So yeah, I'll go with Thiago and it's not going the distance.
Yeah, I agree with John. Definitely Thiago. Probably by knockout.
Yeah.
Gotta go with Thiago Alves by knockout or submission. BJJ black belt, Black Zillion.
Black Zillion, he likes to piss other animals' urine. I'm taking bets on Twitter. What kind of piss is Thiago Silva going to submit? Pig, 2-1. Human, 2-1. Cow, 3-1. Long shot. Chicken, 7-1. If you want to go with llama, llama is at 200-1. If Thiago Silva submits llama piss, you will make a killing. So check out my Thiago Silva urine odds race going on right now on Twitter. Last topic before we end this. Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, a.k.a. Big Nog, going to be facing Vai Cavallo, Fabricio Werdum. This is really the only fight that's worth really, talking about on the fight or on the card, my opinion. I have Fabricio. I think Big Nog's a hell of a fighter, but Werdum, his striking looked crisp against Roy Nelson, and you gotta look at the pattern Big Nog's on. Since 2008, he hasn't won or lost 2 consecutive fights. He's going back and forth. His last fight was that win against Ed Herman. The next fight is going to be a loss against Fabricio Werdum. Ramses, who you got?
Yeah, let me tell you something. At first, I thought this was going to be a work. I just didn't know who it was going to go towards. It was a perplexing fight, but I saw them in their stupid, the UFC propaganda interviews, the weigh-ins, that pre-fight interviews. They both had black eyes, both of them, Werdum and Nog, which leads me to believe that they've actually been sparring for real. They're not preparing for a fucking work. So I think this is actually going to be. As much as I would love to come in with another conspiracy, I think this is going to be a real fight, an actual shoot. Obviously, if that's the case, Nog is fucked. So Werdum, I'm going to go with him on this one. I think it will be a real fight. You got 2 Brazilians headlining. They just want to see who comes out on top. God bless the UFC for not working this goddamn fight. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think Big Nog's going down. I got Werdum. I don't know last time Big Nog got a big win. He handled Mir, but Mir, destroyed his own. I'm going to go with Werdum. Werdum's looked real good lately, and, I think he's going to finish Big Nog.
What do you think, Mogul?
In my opinion, if there's anybody in the heavyweight division that can beat Cain Velasquez, stylistically, the best matchup is definitely Werdum. And I thought he was going to win up until this week, but for some reason, my gut is telling me Big Nog. It's going to pull off the upset, so I'm going Big Nog.
Big Nog, finally, the truth. Who you got?
I got to go with Big Nog. His last fight, he won by armbar, and I think he's just going to continue doing what he's doing. I mean, that fight was a work, but I got to go with Big Nog.
All right, and that was the last topic we got to get to. So before we let you guys go, really quickly, John, where can we find you on Twitter? How can we follow you?
My name is John Isaac Venturi on Twitter. So just follow me there.
All right, follow that motherfucker. Thanks for calling in. We'll definitely talk with you later. We got Wu-Tang. How do we follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at Wu-Tang 1990, but I change that shit all the time, and the MMA Moguls.
The MMA Moguls, check that shit out. The truth, where do we find you at?
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter at Yao_the truth. That's YAO_the truth.
Fuck yeah, and our boy Ramses, word on the street, the Aunt Jimmy Show, where do we find your ass?
The other day, man, some 85-year-old lady followed me on Twitter. It was last week or something, 2 weeks ago maybe. 85 years old, she follows me on Twitter, wins the $590 million lottery the next fucking day. You follow me on Twitter, The Aunt Jimmy Show. better things than that are going to happen to you. Word on the street.
Word on the goddamn street. Thanks for tuning into this show. It's every Friday, 6 to 8 Eastern. The MMA Roundtable is every Thursday, 5 to 7 Eastern. We plan on having Sam Sicilia on soon, Eddie Bravo, Joey Diaz, Henzo Gracie. Those are all in the works. Thanks again so much for tuning in. It's been an awesome first year. It's going to be even better second year, and you guys are the ones that keep the wind in the sails and keep us going. We couldn't appreciate it anymore. We're looking forward to it. Follow us on Twitter, The MMA Podcast, TheMMAPodcast.com. I'm going to start updating that motherfucker more. It's a big summer for us. We got a summer of a bunch of UFC fights. Your boy's moving from Florida to Colorado. It's going to be good times. Until we see you next week, thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you then. We gone.